Welcome to part 6 of building envelopes in HVAC. Let's get into how we actually measure some of the HVAC energy usage and performance in the building. All right, so if we have this outdoor air unit, we looked at some of the insides of it last time. Let's actually figure out how to install some sensors in it. First thing to do, shut the power off to be safe so your fingers don't get chopped off by a fan blade, etc. Usually on rooftop units, there's an external power supply that you can just shut off. Make sure you clear that with the building operator first before you do that, especially if it's in a zone that needs constant conditioning. But if everything is shut off and you're able to get in there, then the first thing you can track on it is how much energy the fan is actually using. So you can install one of these little guys, one of those current transformers around one of the power lines going into the fan motor. You can also use like a mag logger, which senses a magnetic current that's generated by the electric motor, or a contact logger. Those will tell you more when the fan is operating and won't give you as much information as a current transformer, which will give you much better indications of power consumption as opposed to just on or off. All right, the second place to find some power is based on the compressor. So once again, use your current transformer, look for the power supply in the compressor. You can usually take these off with a simple screwdriver. The panels are removable for servicing the compressor as well as the supply air filter. So once you get in, look for the power supply that's going to the compressor, tack that on, and then you can see when the unit is in cooling mode. I wish there were really easy sensors to install for tracking the heating, but it's really hard to measure gas usage without very expensive instruments. So I usually have to rely on air temperature differences to kind of estimate gas usage from that. So for that, I use thermocouples. All right, you can get these guys. They'll plug in to your hobo loggers. I like to set them up for anywhere from 1 minute to 5 minutes to give the battery long enough to record for at least a week, if not more. The more data you have, the better to see really how it's operating in a variety of conditions. It's pretty easy usually to install one of these in the supply stream because it's close to the air filters, which are usually fairly easy to access because that's something a lot of building operators have to do pretty regularly. It can be a little bit harder to install one of these on the exhaust, but those are the 4 ideal components that you can track on a rooftop unit or a packaged unit. In a much larger industrial application, it might be a little bit tougher, but if you have, say, 20 different rooftop units that are all conditioning one large warehouse or something like that, it's great to pick a few of these and then install loggers on those 4 points: the fan, the compressor, the intake air, and the exhaust air. The other thing you can do, especially if you don't have access to the roof or the building operator doesn't fancy you being up there, see if they have an energy management system and if you can download some of that data from it over the course of a few weeks. If you have historical data, that's even better. So you can really see how it's operating. The only downside with this is it can be a bit overwhelming, and the EMS has to be configured to allow download of those particular points, and it takes somebody who understands the system and understands it well to give you what you're looking for. But if you request the points and it's available in the building, this is a lot easier than scrambling up on the roof and installing it yourself. Sometimes not all of the temperature sensors are correct. There might be a little bit off on that. So it's nice to have a backup of other physical data, but in a pinch, this is great as well. All right, in terms of tracking indoor conditions, once again, use one of these guys or something similar with a little embedded thermocouple and a humidity sensor as well if you have it, so you can sense dew points. But put one of these next to the thermostat, because that's really what is signaling conditioning within the zone. So make sure that those setbacks are actually happening and see how the space is doing it. If it's staying at the same temperature all year round and it's not supposed to, then you have some issues and some opportunities for savings. So log zone temperatures. The other two places within a zone to log temperatures are the supply and return vents. Supply diffusers are pretty easy to identify. They have a lot of fins because they're trying to direct air outwards. Return grates, I just took a picture in my office here. They've got kind of a grill on them. Sometimes it can be hard to see exactly which is which. If you ever have doubts, that's when you can use a smoke pen, a little bit of baby powder, or just hold your hand up to it if you've got a strong airflow to really see which is which. Sometimes this goes straight into a plenum, or a dropped ceiling, if you will. So you can lift up one of these ceiling tiles and just pop one of these up there and let it sit, because all of that is going to be at the same temperature. That's great. Just be sure to take a picture of it and keep careful notes of where you do install these. Otherwise, it's easy to forget where they are and lose these little guys. So make sure that you take good notes and take a picture of where you actually installed it and which ceiling tile. In terms of putting it on these supply vents, I usually use a little bit of like sticky tape or Velcro to attach it close to here, and then sometimes you can thread an additional thermocouple up there as well for added accuracy, but usually just getting it in this stream is close enough for me. All right, so just to recap, the 4 points that you want to look at on rooftop unit: fan power, compressor power, intake air temperature, and exhaust air temperature if you can get it. In terms of being in the zone, put it next to the thermostat in the return and the supply. Looking at all of those in the outdoor conditions, you can start to get a pretty good sense of whether the conditioning is functioning and how much energy is being used to heat and cool the space. All right, see you next time.